the People's Republic to clarify his status?
Well, I believe those are issues to ask the government of the People's Republic. From our standpoint, we did interact with him and are well aware of Mr. Shingang and are also acquainted with Mr. Wang Yi.
Well, I mean, I just go back to 2021. There was a missing tennis player, Peng Shui. At the time, the Human Rights Office said it's important to have proof of her whereabouts. We would stress it's important to know where she is, her state, and her well-being. Why is a missing tennis player different from one of the most important positions in this country? We don't know whether he's alive or not.
Well, I think he's a government official, and it's up to the government to discuss where he is and his whereabouts.
And the UN is not concerned about senior government officials suddenly being disappeared.
We don't make an assumption one way or the other. Certainly, we wish him well. We hope he's well. But in terms of questions about officials of the government of China, I believe you need to ask those to the government.
But isn't this potentially a human rights issue, potentially?
I think that's based on an assumption.
It's based on no information at all, Farhan.
Well,
because, I mean, if you go to the Foreign Ministry website, it's been scrubbed of his name completely now.
James, if there's no information at all, we have no information at all. I mean, that's simply what it is. It's up to the government of the People's Republic to provide the needed information. Edie.
Thank you, Farhan. The British ambassador said today that the UK is working with the United Nations and Turkey to revive the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Can you tell us specifically what the United Nations is doing? Have there been senior level talks? We know that the Secretary General, of course, is in Europe in a similar time zone.
We continue to pursue, as we have said, the efforts to make sure that exports of food and fertilizer from both Ukraine and the Russian Federation can proceed. I don't have details on this to give you at this point, but as the Secretary General has made clear, he has not given up on this because it's essential, not just for those two countries, but for the well-being of the world.
Can you find out some details for us? Because this was a specific statement.
Yeah, as soon as there are details we can disclose from our side, we will do so. At this stage, given the situation we're in right now, we're not in that position. But we can confirm that we're continuing with our efforts. Deshi?
Still on Black Sea Initiative. Is the United Nations still in contact with Russian Federation officials on this deal or not?
As you know, the Secretary General provided in a letter information about proposals.
So that's the last contact?
For the Black Sea Initiative. You've heard what he had to say last week about the decisions taken. And of course, we are continually reaching out, and we are willing to keep up contacts that would take up the concerns expressed by the Russian Federation, as well as other aspects of the initiative.
Farhan, you didn't answer my question. Are there any communications between the United Nations and the Russian Federation after the termination of the Black Sea Initiative on this issue?
We're continuing our contacts at various levels.
So just a quick follow-up on Edith's question, another question. Let me ask it in the other way. Does the UN support a Black Sea grain corridor that the protection of those ships provided by member states from, obviously, Russian Federation, if there's the risk, would the UN support that deal?
At this stage, I don't want to comment on specific details of different deals. We are looking into and working to see what can be done to support various initiatives to make sure that grain and other exports can continue to proceed. Yes, Vladimir.
Hi, Farhan. On the grain deal too. Today, Russian President's aide, Mr. Yuri Ushakov, said that grain deal is just suspended. So what's it from the UN position? Is it suspended or terminated?
We are not the ones who have tried to end any participation in the deal. That is language that we received from the Russian Federation. The language we received from the Russian Federation did include the word terminated. It's up to them to clarify further if there's any change in that. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Farhan. I have one question with two parts. First, tomorrow the Israeli right and the settlers are planning a flag march in all Jerusalem. If you have any comment on that. And the second, today Israel killed 3 Palestinians in the city of Nablus. Do you have any comment on both incidents?
Well, our concerns about operations that have any civilian casualties apply in the second case. In the first case, you know what we've said about the status of Jerusalem. And of course, we want to make sure that everyone respects the need to preserve the status quo in Jerusalem. Yes, Deji.
Sorry.
And then Murad.
Another question on Syria. The U.S. government said that a Russian fighter jet struck an American drone with a flare over Syria in the past weekend and accusing Moscow of unprofessional behavior in the sky above Syria. Any comments from the UN on that incident?
Well, we want all of the militarization of the area in and around Syria to cease. Part of that, as you know from what Gary Peterson said yesterday, is that we want to have a lasting peace in Syria. And I would just refer you back to what he said about his continuing efforts on that.
Do you think there's a sovereign issue on this? Because you heard the Russian fighter jet struck a U.S. drone in Syria.
We're well aware of the many nations that have been present over these last years. And of course, we want to make sure that everyone respects the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Syria. Murad.
Thank you, Farhan. An Egyptian court relisted today dozens of Egyptians, including Al Jazeera journalists, in a new list of terrorism for a period of 5 years. That means like legal consequences. And you know, Al Jazeera journalists have been like being hauled in like for years now without being charged.
Yes, and we've expressed our concerns about the situation of journalists, including of Al Jazeera journalists in Egypt, and we reiterate those concerns. Yes, James, and then in the back, whoever you are.
Yeah, I've got a few more Ukraine ones, if you don't mind. You already asked about the comments from the British ambassador, Barbara Woodward, but she also said 2 new bits of information. One, that the UK believes that Russia has laid additional mines in the Black Sea, and also that Russia was using, on its recent attacks on food in Odessa, was using ordnance that is designed to take out aircraft carriers. Is this sort of information been shared with the UN? You still have a joint coordination committee staff, even if they're not working with the Russians. Are you aware of these sea mines from Turkey or Ukraine in Istanbul?
Yes, you're right there. The staff of the Joint Coordination Center is still there. The UN staff continues their involvement and will keep apprised of any developments. Obviously, we would be concerned about any such mining or other activity.
But you haven't been informed of it through your staff, through Turkey and Ukraine or any other member state about new sea mines?
I'm not aware that of any first-hand information of that.
Okay.
No.
Another bit of new information, or reasonably new information regarding Odessa. One of the things that was hit was a Romanian flagged ship, a civilian vessel. Does that concern the Secretary General, that a third-party country vessel has been hit, that was only a civilian vessel, that was not there for any military purposes, and of course adding to that, Romania being a member of NATO?
We would be concerned about anything that affects civilian facilities, such as civilian vessels, and of course anything that carries with it the risk of any further expansion of the conflict.
I have one more on Ukraine, then I have one on something else, but maybe you want to go to someone else.
Let's ask the question on Ukraine, and then let's get to the other people.
Okay. So it's comments today by the High Commissioner of Human Rights, Volker Turk, about the Olenevka prison explosion. He seems to be adding new information that the UN has not put out before. He's saying that it definitely wasn't caused by a HIMARS rocket, which was the allegation that was coming from the Russian Federation. And also, when you cancelled your fact-finding mission, you said it was just because of lack of access. He makes it very clear that the lack of access has come from Russia. Russia has not granted requests to access parts of Ukraine or given satisfactory safety assurances for a site visit. So what is the Secretary General, the High Commissioner makes it very, very clear that the truth needs to be known. The accountability is needed for the families. What is the Secretary General doing about this, and what is he saying to the Russian Federation, given this new information that the High Commissioner is now putting out there?
Well, certainly he supports the work of the High Commissioner on this. The High Commissioner's work is being done in coordination. He does, of course, share information with the Secretariat here. And so we're aware of his findings.
And you're putting those findings to the Russian Federation?
Yes, we of course, we'll deal with all of our various interlocutors, including the Russian ones. Yes, in the back.
Thank you, Farhan. I'm Sinan with the Rudav Media Network. My question is about the Turkish drones have been targeting Kurdish forces and civilians in northeast Syria. And any comments about that?
I have no new comment on this. I mean, you'll have seen our reports about the situation in Syria and the concerns we've expressed, and so I would just echo those. Deji?
Just a quick time question. Will Ms. Dennis Bраун have briefed us in the new time or not?
We've requested again to see whether she can do a briefing to you later. She'll be briefing the Security Council, but we'll have to see whether she can talk to you after that.
Okay.
Yes, and back to you.
They don't ask the incisive questions, we do. Right. One question for you, last one. You had a West Africa briefing today, and this was not included, but it's humanitarian information, and I know it wasn't a humanitarian briefing. But there is a very disturbing bit of information I'm seeing attributed mainly to an official of the International Rescue Committee, saying 42,000 people are on the verge of starving to death in the northeast of Burkina Faso. Does the UN have any information of that? Is that something that you are looking at?
We've been concerned about conditions throughout the Sahel, and Burkina Faso is one of the worries. I'll see whether we can get any detail in the next couple of days about the specific situation in Burkina Faso for you. And with that, I'll turn over to Paulina Kubiak.
Thanks so much, Farhan. In the General Assembly today, as you know, member states started off with a debate